What's up, Chris?
Rob, how you doing, buddy?
We are live in the studio. I like it.
Hey, man, this is my podcast, not yours. I will tell everyone that we are live in the studio, and that I love it as well. So, how's it going out there? Where are you calling us from?
It's going well. I am in my house in Roswell, Georgia, which is 30 minutes north of Atlanta.
All right, heard of it. How's life going down there?
It's good. My wife is traveling for work for 3 nights. This will be night number two. So, it's funny. Like moms do this stuff all the time when their husbands go out of town for work, but I need like to announce it to everybody that like how many days my wife's out of town. So I got the kids to school alive. So my job is part one is done.
We're definitely going to get into your hashtag dad life later on in the conversation. First, before we even get into anything, how's your juggling going?
You know what? It's real. I can juggle now officially. I don't know what the step is after that, but it's a pretty cool skill to have, right? I can impress my kids. I go to like the kids museum and I see some balls. I just start juggling and yeah. And now, how about you?
You impressed that on me, and I was just recently in California, so I didn't practice. I didn't bring my juggling balls with me, so I'm a little rusty. But I got back in the office, and like my first time picking them up, I was able to do it for 15 seconds at least. Like I'm kind of semi decent right now. Like I can do it now. It's just, I guess, getting the reps in. I assumed you would be, flaming machetes while your kids circle around you at this point.
We went on a trip and we were in Orlando and there was a magician and we started talking about juggling and he's like, "Yeah, the next step is gets a lot more difficult, like bowling pins and shit." He's like, "That stuff is hard." So he's like, "Stick to three balls and just look like a hero." So yeah, it's pretty neat. It's like something that's impossible to do, and then if you spend like 3 days practicing it for a few minutes each, you can do it. And then I don't know, I'm impressed if I see somebody juggling, so might as well pick up the skill.
Absolutely, I'm psyched that you impressed that upon me.
Yes.
So we have a lot of
Yep.
things that I want to talk about. Some things you're up to right now, things from your past, and that's actually where I want to start. You were a poker player for a living. Where I want to start with that, tell me about the conversation where you told your wife, "Honey, I want to move to Vegas and play poker professionally."
Well, thankfully, I decided this before I met my wife. So I was in
There you go. That
Chicago. I
helps.
lived in Chicago for about 7 years, and I was a trader there at the Merc, trading futures, and which was also kind of like gambling. It's kind of like if you ever seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off, the trading scene in there when they go visit the stock market. That's
Sure.
that's what that is. So I did that in my 20s. I had a really good run. I kind of saw the writing on the wall that that was, winding down. I saw a lot of people giving back all the money that they made. So I was playing poker with my buddies a lot. I started playing online, and then I think I had just broken up with a girlfriend. I was about to turn 30. I was like, why not? Let's do the Rounders, Matt Damon inspired, just pack up all my shit, sold my condo, drove to Las Vegas to say, when else can I do something like this? So yeah, that conversation with my parents was a little bit interesting. Granted, I was 29, but I just decided I'll try this for a year and then, reset it. But it went well. I ended up 3 months later meeting my wife in Vegas. So the rest is history.
So it was all well worth it. You felt you were good enough at this game to really compete? Like, did you know the landscape that you were kind of diving into?
So no, I didn't really know. The summer before, when I was still living in Chicago, I actually had like my big poker moment, which was I flew to Las Vegas to play in the World Series of Poker. It was my second time there. Our friend Zach Bush actually had been playing it too, so he kind of inspired me. We qualified. I played. I knew what I was doing, but not actually. The irony is, I'm a lot better poker player today than I was 11 years ago. But that summer, I had just like a crazy run in the main event. The main event's a $10,000 buy-in tournament, and at this time, this was like the peak of poker in America. Like online was booming, and there was 8,800 people in the tournament, and I finished 23rd that year, which was like a 7-day marathon, like every day, noon till 3 a.m., noon till 3 a.m. And, actually on one of our first dates, I told my wife that I finished 23rd and she was like, "That's cool, but doesn't sound so impressive." But that year 23rd paid like $500,000.
All right.
So that was a nice little bankroll boost. And, I was like, I've always tried this. I knew I was pretty good at it. And I was like, why not just give it a shot, move out to Vegas? I was playing in Chicago some, but I was like, when else can you do something like this? So I figured, let's go.
Right. So that's an easy bridge to the confidence the following year to be like, all right, I have some back cash in my back pocket. I've proven that I can at least do something in a, there is that variance that like could land me a pot like that. And all right, that makes a little more sense. If you didn't have that moment, if you went there and finished 87/72nd out of 8,800, you might not be making that move the next year.
Exactly. My friend that talks a lot about poker is brilliant. He was on my podcast, DGAF. He goes by an acronym. He says everybody that gets into poker, he talks a lot about like variance and how you run in life and in poker and in everything. He's like, anybody that decides to take up poker runs well in the beginning. So something happens to them, whether they get a windfall of money or they win a tournament or something like that, puts you in this position to try. So yeah, I had confidence, but you get humbled pretty quick when you go out to Vegas. But I did it for 11 years, made money every year. It was really a crazy run. I kind of got out of the tournaments though. I realized those are they're almost like Powerball tickets. Like you can know what you're doing, but the best players in the world are gonna lose 9 out of 10 times. So I kind of transitioned after 2 years. I was like, this is no way to make a living and lose, keep your sanity. So I switched away from tournaments after a few years and started playing cash games in Vegas.
Right. Very similar to there's a lot of crossover between poker world and the daily fantasy world. Whereas, in daily fantasy, I don't play poker at all. I don't know how to play really, which is something we should talk about maybe offline. But in daily fantasy, I basically just play the tournaments, and I do it well knowing that it's just a home run ball and not the actual way to grind. What what did a normal day look like for you when you first land in Vegas and you're like, all right, now I'm gonna go play? Did you like have a schedule and be like, all right, I know I'm gonna go to this casino on Tuesdays and I'm gonna be a daytime person there or a nighttime person at this place and more money, less money? What was the game plan and how did you execute on a day to day basis?
Yeah, so you do learn as you go. And at the time I was single, so that changed. And I knew nights are always going to be better in Vegas. That's a lot more action going on there. So, when you're 29 and single, I would, go to the casino at 7, 8 p.m. and play till 4 or 5 in the morning, sleep till noon. I look back at those days, I'm like, man, what a life. But I was kind of just hopping around. You'd hop around casinos because Vegas has Bellagio, the Wynn, Venetian. So you never know where the good game is. The good game being like, where are the whales? Where's the action? So you really do have to hop around, and people aren't going to tell you either where's a good game. If they're in a good game, they probably don't want Chris the Shark to come play there. So a lot of trial and error, and a lot of just like figuring it out. And yeah, you never know.
As you, I guess, have more time and more reps, then you start to learn, all right, I know that these nights might be better. Does that unfold itself, or it's still kind of just random because the whales just come and go at their own discretion?
Yeah, so weekends obviously are going to be better. So like I knew Friday, Saturday, Sunday I'm going to be playing a lot, so maybe I won't play as much during the week, but nights, conventions, when there's fights, like on Tyson that's before my time, but like if there was a big fight, that was always a good time, or the rodeo, or just like the NBA All-Star game was in Vegas once and it was insane that weekend, Super Bowl. So you're looking for those kind of weekends, but in general, you're just like, you never know. I could be at like a boring game at 1 p.m. on Sunday and Russell Westbrook sits down to play. I mean, he actually knows what he was doing, so he's not the best example, but like Hollywood producer comes down and he just wants to like blow 10 grand and show off his ego and really just try and take you down. And like those are the best games ever. And you would never know. So
Right, totally random. Do those people when they sit down, do they know that you're a pro?
so that's good, really good question. A lot of poker pros, they wear almost a uniform, which is like the hoodie, glasses, the big over the ear headphones, which I think, and it's actually what you're not supposed to do if you're a pro. You want to kind of blend in. You almost want like to have an alibi. Like I hated telling people I was a poker pro. I would actually tell them I was a trader. from Chicago, and it was kind of annoying when a dealer would be like, "Hey, Rob, what's up?" Like I hated being like outed. So
Right.
pretty soon they would know that like you knew what you were doing. But I definitely tried to, you know, not portray that image.
And when you were doing these nighttime sessions initially when you were single, did you go in with a budget, like a bankroll for that night, and like if I lose this, then I'm walking away, even if it's in an hour?
Yeah, so that's a good question too, and that took a lot of time to learn. A lot of people say like if you make this, you're gonna leave, but really, I would bring, and it would be like in chips or cash, which is like crazy to think about sometimes. Like in my pants, I would just have maybe a few $1,000s or sometimes more, and you want to have like multiple bullets because if you go bust in a cash game, you can bring out more money and keep playing. So a lot of times I would play, I'd maybe have like a stop loss where if it was just going really badly, I would get up. But the irony is too, in a lot of the best games, when it's just action is flowing, you can lose the most money because, Chris is there to have fun. He's just going to go in blind with a 7-2. He's going to put $3,000 in the middle. I'm going to, of course, call with my pair of jacks, and I could lose that hand. I need to take out more money. So a lot of the times I was there till 5 a.m. was I was either winning big or losing big. But I think that's the demise of most poker players is like they get glued to the chair and they don't know when to get up and they're trying to get even. And it's just like a vicious cycle. Like everybody plays well when things are going well, in life, but it's when like you just keep getting unlucky or the guy next to you smells bad or this guy's talking shit to you that like that's when people lose their minds and like a lot of their money is lost. So
Right. So when you remove the tournaments from your, I guess, gameplay strategy, and you were doing sitting down and knowing that you're only playing these cash games, did you like was the goal each night to? And again, this might be a little repetitive to the last question, but just trying to take it a little further. Did you have a goal each night, like with John Turturro's character in Rounders? Like you want to make, 2x that you sat down
yeah.
with, and then you're done, or it's like, all right, tonight I'm feeling good and I'm gonna go for it. I want to 10x my night tonight just because of a vibe in the air, or you had a shitty day last day, so like today you want to try to make it up, which is probably a bad way to approach it. When you sit down for one of these runs, what's the what are you hoping the outcome is each day?
Right. It's a good question. And I still, it's amazing playing for 10 years. You're still like, think about those things. But you don't, you don't go into a game saying, I'm going to try and make $1,000. Some people will try and do that. But I think it's like the wrong target because you can't really control the results. So I'm going to play in a game as long as I can stay awake. There'd be like coffee at 3 a.m. sometimes. But like, as long as the game is good, I want to be sitting there because that's when I have an advantage. So like, it would be silly for me at 1 a.m. to be like, up, I made 2 grand, best day ever. I'm gonna go home now because you're like you're feeling good, and when you're feeling good, you want to be playing more. So no, I never put like a goal. I mean, at the end of the year, there's gonna be a ton of ups and downs. Like you keep records of your nights,
Sure.
but at the end of the year, you almost like average it out to like I played 1,000 hours this year. I made X amount of money. So you're almost playing like an hourly wage. So in essence, the longer you play, the more you make if you're a winning poker
If you're
player.
good, right? Is
Yeah,
it is it
yes.
similar to sports gambling where you're looking to win, 55, 58, 60% of the time that you sit down?
Yeah, so I would, I made money every year I played poker, but if you look at like my sessions, it's probably like 60-40 winning, losing. So four out of 10 times I'm going in there, I'm losing money, which is crazy to think about. And that's still like, you're going to probably come out ahead in the end. But like, if you go a week or you can go 2 weeks or a
Right.
month of losing, it fucks with your head. And you can be like, am I good? Am I playing good? And you're probably playing pretty well, but it starts to like eat into your confidence and stuff. So
You know, s- s-
poker it's a giant mind fuck, really like everybody can do well when things are going well, but it's when shit hits the fan that you need to like get your mind right.
swings like that, and this mental dance is very similar to that of an entrepreneur, which you're doing now. I don't want to jump to that just yet, but it seems like a lot of parallels in those worlds. You mentioned before if the game was good. What constitutes a good game at the table? Just a lot of
So
money.
usually a lot of money on the table. So there'd usually be like, so if a table has 9 people at it, once the stakes get pretty high, like 6 or 7 of them are going to be either pros or people that really know what they're doing. So, if you can get 2 or 3 guys that have money, they're going to sit down like, check chips. I need $5,000 in chips. You see people's eyes light up because this guy's here to play. When there's alcohol and when there's a lot of booze being going on, that's a good sign because people's inhibitions are lower. They're just looking to gamble more. So,
How
yeah,
did you
that's what makes a
handle
good.
the alcohol element when you were playing?
When I first started, I would drink. I'd have a couple beers to almost like fit the part too. But I can't really like. First of all, I'll get tired after a few hours of drinking. But you could even order a tonic water and just sit there. But there are some people, like some of the best players I know, like can drink with the fish. They say, to like make him feel comfortable. But I couldn't pull that off as well. So I'd try to be fun and keep good conversations with the whales, but I couldn't really drink with them. That's what would be my demise. So yeah,
And so you mentioned Russell Westbrook before. Was it common to play with, I guess being in Vegas, yes, play with famous people or at least the famous poker people, like when Mike sat down with Johnny Chen in Rounders? Did you have any of those moments against some of the greats where you tested yourself?
yeah, Rounder. I mean, you could still turn that movie on and I'd be
Always,
excited. And
always.
it's the most rewatchable movie ever, I think. I did when I played in the tournaments. A lot of those guys don't really play cash games; they play tournaments because either they're sponsored, but like you'd get a table draw and it would say like go to table 42, seat 6 because you're starting today. And like I remember the second year I was playing the main event, Phil Ivey was at my table, and I was like, I mean, first of all, you're excited. Second of all, you're terrified. Like that guy can just like stare you down and look into your soul, and he does not give a shit about $10,000. So that's a dangerous thing. But so yeah, the poker pros I played with like Helmuth, Ivy, those guys, but mostly cash games. And I think like I'd go to LA sometimes. LA is actually maybe the biggest and best poker in the world at the Commerce Casino, it's called. And there you'd see a lot of actors, celebrities, producers, like guys like DiCaprio would play there sometimes. I played with Don Cheadle one night, who was like the nicest guy, and he like took it seriously. He stayed there for 6 hours. He was like playing to win and like talk to everybody. So yeah, those were more fun. I'd rather play with like normal celebrities. Poker celebrities kind of like I could see through their bullshit a little bit. So it was more fun to play with the civilians
Well, probably easier to take their money too.
and that, right?
What was your worst beat?
Right. That's a Rounders quote. Every poker player, you can barely remember the wins, but you can remember all the bad beats. I'm sure you can do the same in gambling and fantasy, right?
For sure, and just sports in general. And my Laker fan, I know the worst loss stands out just as good, just as much as the titles. And in business too, you just remember the bad stuff for some reason. So I'm sure
Yeah.
there's at least one that sticks out, or it could be an extended one where you like spoke of before, where you had like just this 2 week, you know, debacle where you're like, holy shit, my bankroll is like on life support.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I definitely had at the Win one night one of these movie producers who I've played with before, and to not say anything too disparaging about him, he's definitely has a big ego, and he comes there to like take down the pros, like that's his goal. And like I got in a hand with him, and he'll put $10,000 on the table and rebuy, and he brings his hot date with him, and he's really just showing off. And I know you don't know too much about poker, but a full house, which is in No Limit Texas Hold'em, which is the game I pretty much only played as almost one of the best hands you can get. Like it's hard to get much better. And he's putting in money and I'm putting in money, and there's like, you know, $2,000 in the pot, and then he's raising me, and I am so excited. Like to put, like if my car keys were in play, like I would have thrown them on the
Right.
table.
Anything you got. Yeah.
Anything I got, like
Yeah.
literally, if this guy's like, your house, you want to put our houses in, I'll be like, I'm in, right? And it turned out that at the end, I showed my hand. Actually, he showed his hand before me, and he showed four of a kind, which he got on the river. So he was behind the whole time, which he should have been playing also. It's an amazing hand. And I didn't even show my hand, which is kind of like a pro move. You try to like,
Hmm.
not really give it up.
Yep.
And yeah, that took the wind out of my sails for sure. So that one hurt, especially losing to him, who I saw at the Oscars with his new
Right.
wife.
Right.
And I'm like, this motherfucker, but
The
it's
double
all
gut
fair.
punch, not just your cash, but your emotion, your emotional state.
Yeah. But the 2006 World Series, I mean, and I again, like, that's the thing with poker. It's not almost as, and gambling too, and what you do. It's like not as important how good you are, but your edge against the other person that you're playing, right?
Hmm.
So like if you play, your grandma, even if you don't know what you're doing, you're probably going to beat her. But so in 2006, when it's just like advance to the next day and getting this just mountain of chips, like, I mean, I look back at even like pictures of me with all these chips, and I'm like, it's a blur, it's crazy. I did write like a little email diary at the end, thanking my friends. There was no Twitter back then, really, so it was
Right.
like it was cool to look back at and be like, did that really happen? That's insane. So
That's an amazing experience, I'm sure.
yeah, I recommend everybody try something like that once in their life, but I also recommend do not play poker for a living in today's world. So I'm glad I did it for sure. It afforded me a great life, and I ended up meeting my wife kind of through that. But you know, it's
That-
a hard way to make an easy living. That's what they say.
That's a good segue. But first off, like, do you miss it?
You know what? I don't. It's weird. This is like the longest I haven't played poker now. It's almost 6 months since we moved to Atlanta. I kind of would go up to North Carolina and play some, but I miss playing with like my buddies in a home game. That's how we all started,
Hmm.
and that's fun. But like playing to try and win money in a casino, I'll do it again for sure, but I don't miss it right now. No, a lot of the people. That's part of the problem. It's kind of brings out not always the best element, and that can drag you down a little bit.
For
So
sure.
I miss the game, but I don't really miss like the people around it. A lot of them.
That makes sense. So you said 6 months in Atlanta. Was it Vegas to Atlanta, and what ended up making that decision to end that portion of your life and move down south?
So it was a big decision that kind of came out of nowhere. My wife, she's got the stable career with the, health insurance and all the benefits and everything like that. And she was, doing really well. She was at GE for, almost 20 years, her whole life. And she got an opportunity to move to Atlanta to kind of a promotion. And we said, we're not moving. We've got it made here. Vegas is awesome. And then 48 hours later, we were house hunting and we're like, there's no poker in Georgia. So it was kind of scary for me. Like, what am I going to do? But she's just like a rock star at work and is just like going to be a CEO one day. So I was like, look, it's time for, you know, let you do your thing. We'll figure it out. I'll figure out me. And so we, 3 months later, bought a house and moved, and been here a year, so it's been good.
What was that switch in that 48 hours where you're like, nah, we're not moving, and then all of a sudden you're looking for houses? What happened?
Yeah. Well, my wife is notorious for taking action. Like we have a slogan in our house, Angie doesn't fuck around. So when Angie makes a decision, she's not gonna like waver on it. Like, let's look at this house and this job. Like she made up her mind, and she's right. Like the paradox of choice, right? Like, well, should we or should we get this house or should we wait and see this job? She's like, let's do it. And I was like, I was looking for a change. I was burning out on poker, and it's tricky because poker, you're still gonna make. If you're a winning player, you're gonna make money. But I was looking for something new. I wasn't making as much as I was 5 years ago. So I was like, maybe this will be, burn your ships, as they say, jump off the cliff and just go. And this was like a good push.
All right. So you said you would figure it out when you got to Atlanta. So what have you figured out so far? What is it that you're working on now?
So the main thing I'm working on is being a dad to these three kids because
Important job.
that was the other thing is right before we moved, we had our third kid, a baby girl. So she was 3 months old when we moved. So that was kind of the plan is like, well, you're going to stay home with the kids. Granted, two of them are in school and one's in daycare. So, but there's a lot that goes into that. So, yeah, I'm a stay-at-home dad. I've been scratching my entrepreneurial itches, and I've started a couple companies, and I'm juggling. We talked about juggling earlier. I'm
Right.
like, there's a lot of juggling going on here. Like, it's a good metaphor for what I'm doing. But so, yeah, mainly a dad, but also working on some fun projects.
One of those fun projects, which I alluded to at the beginning, is a your own podcast, which I was fortunate enough to be a guest on, called "Dad the Best I Can." Speaking of dad life, why? I guess tell us about that, and why did you feel that the dad niche was where you? Why did it need this, and Why is that where you decided to put your efforts?
Well, I mean, first of all, props to you. I think you kind of inspired me. You're running 3 podcasts. You're doing one daily, and I'm obsessed with podcasts. Listening to them, I think they're like the greatest medium ever. I think that's what actually like kind of broke me out of my shell a few years ago. Just learning, listening to like Joe Rogan, Tim Ferriss, all these guys, and I've started to learn and learning from these podcasts. You've got to just put yourself in uncomfortable positions and try new shit out. So I almost wanted to like document a little bit about what I'm going through right now as a dad, and also like just talking to other people, especially my friends that are dads. It was like they're all going through the same stuff, and there wasn't too much dialogue about it. Moms, I think, get a lot of that. So I was like, why not just start one up, commit to like 3 to 5 episodes. You were the inaugural episode, and you killed it. You should those of you that haven't listened should definitely listen to episode 1 with Chris Heller, how he taught his 4-year-old how to meditate. Um, but yeah, it was just I asked you that. Why do you start a podcast? And like I think the main reason is it's fun, and why not? It can lead to other things, but that's the main thing. You get like to be creative in this kind of cool space, and you talk to interesting people. And what I found is like people don't really get to talk about their dad life all that much or listen to it. So it's been fun, connecting with friends and now other people to talk.
It's a good one. I mean, I listen. I think I've listened to every episode so far. I might be maybe one or two behind, although I did listen to your most recent one, which is a really good one from a dad in Brooklyn. I should probably get hooked up with him. He seems like
Oh,
a
he's
interesting dude.
hilarious.
Uh,
Game show debacles. If anybody wants to hear about how you can embarrass yourself on national TV, I highly recommend it. It's
yes,
great.
something you know very much. You know a lot about. Do you feel like a dad authority now that you have put yourself in this position? Because you are, whether you like it or not, by starting this podcast, you do put yourself in this position of, hey, you must know about dad stuff because you're doing a dad podcast without people knowing much more than that. That's like the obvious surface level reaction. So do you feel like a dad authority, and like are people coming to you and saying some dad advice?
Well, as any dad will say, I mean, if you saw me at like 7 p.m. last night, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing sometimes. It was me, especially when the wife was out of town. It's me and 3 kids. A dad at the baseball practice actually said, he's like, that's the best 1-3 zone I've ever seen anybody play or something. So internally, I feel like I'm winging it. I have every day like 10 breakdowns where I'm like, how do people do this? This is crazy. But um, yeah, I don't know. No, I don't really feel like a dad authority. Like I know what I'm doing because especially once you have I thought I knew what I was doing, and then we had a new baby, and I realized you got to start over. So what I think is the best part of it is I learn from other people. Like I do on the show, we do like a dad tip, and just this morning, my 1.5-year-old was crying in her crib at 5:40, and I'm like, I know you get up that early, but I needed a couple more minutes of sleep. And his dad tip is no kid has ever died from crying. So it was literally what I thought about. And I was like, I'm going to go downstairs, make my coffee, get ready so I can handle all this. So it was like, I learned from other people. And I think that's like the cool part about it is talking to other people, hearing what they're doing, hearing that they're winging it too. So I think that's neat.
Right. So at the very least, you're consuming all this different information from all these different sources, your guests. How many episodes have you done thus far?
I've done like about 25. I did some Super Bowl ones that were fun, and yeah, I'm trying to put out one a week, and it's been good. Like, I can't do. You're doing one a day, which is amazing, and I think that like act of also like, as they say, shipping something every week. Creating it that's not perfect before it's totally even ready. I think is a really like rewarding thing to do. So almost like if it's Thursday and I haven't put it out, like I'm like it's going out tomorrow no matter what. So actually tomorrow. I don't think my wife is too thrilled about this, but her parents were in town this weekend, and I recorded at like after everybody went to bed, my father-in-law,
Nice.
and she was like, "Please don't do it." And I'm like, "I'm sorry, I have to do it. The guy is hilarious. He's amazing. He's not my dad, so
That's a great one. I love that.
yes, so it's good. I edited out a couple of his dad jokes that might embarrass, their kids, but it's going out tomorrow. So
I think
sorry,
that's
Angie.
what as we get older, us dads are supposed to embarrass their kids. It's just part of the program.
For sure.
I'm going to look to you as a dad authority. I've got two things on my mind, and your boys are a little older than mine. How old are they now?
So 6.5, 4.5, and a 1.5-year-old girl.
Right. So I have 4.5 and 2-year-old boys. Two things that are on my horizon that I that are somewhat concerning to me, or I'm thinking about. So maybe you can shed some light through your wise dad knowledge.
Oh, I give advice a lot better than I can, take it in. So great.
Tell me about it. So my two boys have their bedrooms right next to each other in my house. Right. My 2-year-old is still in his crib. I know the day is coming soon where he's going to move to a bed, which would give both of them the freedom to, at their at their own volition, walk out of their room into each other's room and just kind of play at any hour of the night whenever they feel like it. One can go and wake up the other at 2 in the morning. Like, what goes on there? How do I prevent the mayhem that I assume will ensue on some level?
Yes. Well, I'm impressed that that's one piece of advice that I also learned. Keep your kid in a crib as long as you can. So no rush getting him out there, which hopefully we'll take that advice. But I mean, Chris, bedtime at our house is such a shit show. I wish I could like advise about it. It's gonna happen. I've tried rewards, I've tried punishment, I've tried bribing. Usually it's like they're gonna mess with each other. I assume they get along pretty well, or they have their moments. How old? 4 and 2?
Yeah, 4.5 and just recently 2. They're like really establishing a nice friendship, but the bigger one obviously pushes the younger one when he feels necessary as well.
Right. So our bigger issue is like our younger one, our middle child, who definitely has middle child syndrome. I'm realizing, even though I'm like, we give you the most attention in the house. He'll come in our room, which we don't let him sleep in our room, but sometimes it'll be start in our room and pass out, and then I'm carrying him back to his room. But eventually they wear themselves out, but sometimes that can be like 9:15 p.m., which is like that's like my paint when I'm like I need to watch my fucking TV show for 20 minutes or talk to my wife. That's when it gets a little hairy, and that's when you're like most depleted of all your willpower and sanity.
Totally.
So
But that could be the case with just one. Like my 4.5-year-old when he was 2, he had like a run of the Jack in the Box syndrome where you put
oh
him in bed and
yes.
they just walk right out. Like before, like by the time I close the door, he's already standing at it, opening it, and this would go on for an hour to 2 hours, like to the point for months on end. Like where I would put in headphones and listen to podcasts as I just walked from the door to the bed to the door to the bed for an hour and a half each night. So that potential for the younger one plus the other one like laughing as that's happening or coming out each time to be like help me go to sleep. Like I just see the potential for such a disaster. Maybe it's because of this Jack in the Box thing I experienced a couple of years
Man,
back.
this
But
makes me feel better. I thought you had it all figured out, Chris. It seems like you did.
yeah, I put on a good front. So the
I think
second.
I think my sister, she actually like experiences this. She's got a 5 and 3-year-old, and she'll like lay in the room, not even talk to the kid because she's like it's bedtime. So she'll like I'll wait until he passes out because that Jack in the Box is the worst because you're like all right, I'm settled. No, so she's like I'm just gonna lay here. We're not gonna talk. And eventually, once you get one of them to pass out, it gets a little easier. But yeah, when you have two going at each other, I don't know. I got nothing for you. You gotta deal with it and figure it out like the rest of us because there is no answer.
The second thing on my mind is since we solved that one so perfectly. My 4.5-year-old is graduating in June and going from this, cute little private nursery school, pre-K, whatever, with 2, 3, and 4-year-olds, and he's going to be entering this big kindergarten where it's K through 5, and depending on what school he goes to, potentially K through 5 right next to 6 through 12. Like just this massive change, and who knows which one of his friends are going to be in this school versus that school. It's the way, Brooklyn rolls. It's not as clean cut as the suburbs or my growing up. Like, oh, if I live here, then we're all going here. If you live here, then you're all
Hmm.
going here, and we'll meet up in high school. It's not like that. Um, so I'm nervous for him on one hand, even though like my better judgment is like kids adapt and I want him to be uncomfortable and that's a good thing to learn and whatever. But I'm like, I would just keep envisioning like just sending him off into this big wild world and him just like with his little backpack looking around like, what the fuck, Dad?
It's the best. I dropped my kids off today, and like you see them with a 4-year-old with a big backpack that's like bigger than they are, and it's like it is the coolest thing to see how like confident they get. There are those moments where they don't want to get on the bus, and then I had to like drive him, but like you said, they adapt so well. We up and moved our kid from Vegas like halfway through the school year, and I was like, how are they going to deal? My mom actually was more worried about it than we were because you don't want them to go through that, but like you said, you do kind of want them to go through that, and they make friends so fast that like you'll be worried about it, and then a week later you'll have forgotten about it. So
I'm sure, but it's still, it's just natural to be like,
of course, yeah,
I'm scared for him. What if he's not good there?
yeah,
So it's
he'll
something.
do. He's your son. He's your son. He'll do great.
Thank
He'll
you.
be the mayor of the school.
Appreciate that. Speaking of things that you're up to, another thing that I love and I want to talk about is Kickstart Reading, which is a platform you created with your sister or sister-in-law,
Sister, yeah.
sister.
Yes, and you're actually our number one dad user, so we really appreciate you
What?
putting.
How do you define that? What does that mean? Number one dad user.
Well, I check like the stats on
Oh, how
when
many
people are.
videos I watch?
I hate to out people, but yes, like Facebook, everybody knows what everybody's up to. So I just see like logged on yesterday, and I'm like, oh, awesome, logged on today. I was like, I want to buy stock in that kid. That kid is reading. He's got his 2-year-old doing it. It's awesome. So
My
yeah, it was
my yeah, I guess so. I just wanted before you tell us a little bit more about it. My boys love it, and I try to do it every day if I can.
yeah, I could borrow. And you know what? It really, it helps, because I went to my 4-year-old's pre-K. He's in pre-K. He's at the elementary school, and his parent teacher conference, and she's like reading off the charts. Like I have to tell him to put his hand down in the circle time, and I'm like, it could be genes, it could be, but I guarantee like having some familiarity with letter sounds and these things, and basically. Like I think we've talked about before, the alternative is nothing. I'm not like buying some book on Amazon and teaching him how to read. So basically, my sister was a kindergarten teacher, and my kid was going into kindergarten, and I was like, oh shit, he doesn't know how to read. Like I read books to him every night, but I don't know what I'm doing. I tried a couple times, like sounding out a word, and I called her. I was like, can you help a little so he's not like coming in completely blind? And she made like a couple really short videos on her phone, and I was like, these are really good, Lauren. Like, can you share them with a couple friends to like see what they think? And basically, she just like teaches a kid how to read the word cat, for example. Like really short video. And I was like, if I was kind of starting to like learn about web development a little bit and have this entrepreneurial spirit now since I'm getting out of poker. I want to like find out what I can do next. I was like, if I build a website, can you make more of these videos? She said, sure. And, that was almost a little more than a year ago. And now we've got like 100 videos. We're, featured by influencers online and stuff. And we're selling subscriptions to people. We're on Amazon. We're getting really big. So it's been really exciting. And it's like, one of our slogans is it's screen time you can feel good about. So it's like, first of all, it's only 2 minutes. Like it's not like watch this 20-minute video, which I told my sister I'll never do. So they're very short. They're very almost like low tech. And like when you're done with it, 2 minutes later, you're like, oh, I feel like a good parent, or my kid did something productive instead of now go play Angry Birds if that's what you have to do. At least we like did something. So yeah, it's been a really cool run so far, and it's fun doing stuff with. Since you're around your kids all the time, you might as well like work with them on something productive.
Totally. I mean, they very often like ask me to learn to read, right? They're like, "Can we do a reading video?" And now they're into the colors and numbers one. And even my 2-year old, even when his older brother's not there, he'll be like, "Daddy, colors, color," like color video he wants to do, or numbers. Though those are what they're really into right now. I think obviously I don't know the market that well, but I think you guys really have something there. Um,
I appreciate it.
they're not
Yeah. I
reading
mean,
yet,
now, like, everybody tells us, like, now it's just marketing, and as
right?
I'm learning about digital
Like
marketing, I'm
everything.
like, well,
Yeah,
no shit. Like,
yeah,
everything is
of course.
marketing. Like, you just need to, connect with influencers, which we have started doing. We got Julianne and Bill Rancic to look at it, and they love it, and they're kind of showing it off on their site. So it's there, but it's like, right, getting the word out, and it's a long game. You kind of just got to make it and share it and hope people like it.
Yeah, sure. Marketing is the fuel, but you got to have you got to have the oxygen to start the fire in the first place. Like, so you
Right.
need a good product that I think will resonate, and I think you guys have that.
Well, I appreciate it. And, you were an early user like you are in a lot of these things. So we appreciate you being a part of it.
Glad I could help. We'll talk about marketing that thing another time.
Yeah,
And giftedtesting.com, which I just recently learned about. What is that? You really got a lot going on over there.
I do. I can't stop. It's like I'm really good at starting new projects
Right.
because, as you know, the idea part is the easy, sexy part. It's the
Yeah.
executing that gets hard. But my
Right.
dad is a psychologist. He's always wanted to start an online, business kind of in his world. And I was like, all right, you're 66 years old. I'll help you out, get you started. So a big part of his practice is testing kids like or as early as 5 for gifted testing. And in Florida and a lot of states, that's really big. So he's created a kind of a directory. So like if you want to find somebody to test your kid, you can go on giftedtesting.com and find a psychologist near you that specializes in this. So it's kind of like a online directory, quick one-stop shop to find this. So it's been fun. It's interesting working with family. It's a whole new, mindset, but it's been fun and it's also growing. So it's neat. I keep launching these balloons in the air. I got to make sure I, stay on the ground too though.
Well, for that, all you need now is marketing.
Exactly. You know a guy?
Working with family, that's interesting. Like so many people are like, oh, it's such a non-starter. Like you can't do that, which is I think ridiculous in most cases. For me, most sweeping generalizations, I'm against in general because I think most things are just case by case. But you found it obviously pretty doable to work with your sister and now your dad.
Yeah, I mean, I had no experience in any of these things, so I'm like, what can I, everybody talks about this whole start your own business, be your own boss, and it's a very seductive,
Sure.
angle to take, but it's also like, okay, and do what or now what? And I do find that frustrating that like so many people push that, but they almost just like, okay, now go figure it out. So since I didn't really have an angle, I didn't really want to do anything on poker anymore. I was like, well, my sister's a teacher. That could be a business. My dad's a psychologist. That could be a business. And I could like almost practice, with their expertise. And so, yeah, I'm kind of like winging it, but they're, starting to hit a little bit. And like you said, you never know what can come from it. And if nothing else, like there are great ways to practice, like whatever you're doing, everything that you're doing. It's like I used to trade futures, which is basically like they're kind of like options. Like, it's not what Apple's trading at now. It's like, what do you think Apple will be trading at in 2020? And like, if there were Chris Heller futures, like in 2022, you're going to be doing something freaking, you're doing cool shit now, but it's like all of these reps that you're getting are going to like stack themselves and you're going to be doing some awesome stuff down the road. So I'm trying to like put myself in the same trajectory, just acquire skills, get practice doing stuff out of my comfort zone. So these are good ways to do it, I think.
For sure. And we touched on this before, but do you think that the poker lifestyle gives you an edge, if that's the poker term, or prepares you for this entrepreneurial lifestyle where it's juggling different things and managing all these different parts of the game? And are you playing for the day to day short term? Are you playing for the big tournament win? Or um, do you find
Yeah.
those ways in these businesses to be like you see an edge, like an angle that you would on a poker table when you're playing against other people?
It's a great concept because I do like intuitively I think the biggest thing that you learn is like dealing with failure because like I said before in poker you're going to lose in trading too you're going to lose almost half the time.
Right.
And most people can't handle that. And I'm not saying I'm great at it, but like I just know it's coming, like shit's going to go wrong And in entrepreneurship,
Perfect parallel.
it's perfect, and parenting too. It's like all of these things are just like fail, fail, fail. The kid fell off the couch, or you can't tie his shoes, or your website just went down, or your email didn't go out. And these things are like, they're inevitable. So I think like building that resiliency, which is something you do in poker, is really helpful. And I think also like I like to read a lot about like psychology and persuasion and things like that, and like things like copywriting, and even like at a poker table, like how you figure out, get a read on a person, not necessarily a tell, which there are some of those, but like what's this person's motivations, what do they like to do, what don't they like to do. So I think all those things are applicable in entrepreneurship, parenting, all these things. But the big one being just building up that resiliency, not being afraid to fail, or just knowing that it's coming. And like, I think parenting, that's like the best part of it. Like I'll have a moment where like last night at baseball practice, my 6.5-year-old's playing, my 4.5-year-old needs to go to the bathroom. I'm like, go pee on a tree. We'll be fine. He's like, no, poop. I'm like, okay, there's no bathroom in this park. I'm looking for like a ditch to like, the 1.5-year-old's crying. Like we ended up I was like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, how do we do this? And like 30 minutes later, it was figured out. So like there's those moments of just like frustration. And then you just know that like fast forward a little and things are going to be all right. So
They will
easy to talk about now, but in the moment, it's
right.
like pretty tough.
They will be sleeping at some point later. Just have to like
Oh,
keep telling you that. Most likely.
that's what
Most likely.
yes, for sure.
I noticed that only recently you joined social media world. I assume in conjunction with the launch of these businesses for brand awareness. What are your thoughts? I guess there was a reason that you weren't active on these sites previously. So what was your thought then, and how has it changed now that you're an active participant in the Instagram, Facebook world?
Yes, I know, Chris. I could spend hours. I spent hours thinking about this, and like you said, I kind of avoided Facebook for 10 years. I was never really on it, and now with a business, online businesses, that is the best way to promote it. I do struggle with like how much time that you end up spending on, or that I end up spending on it. And there is some benefit, but I try to think about a lot of things in like cost benefit analysis, and I'm like, there is some benefit. We can grow our following. Who really cares about how many followers you have on Instagram? But it does help spread the word. But yeah, it has been something that I kind of go, I never really used it, so I was like, I at least need to try these things and before I'm talking shit about all of them. But when I'm on it, I just like find that, is this the best use of my time? So I'm very torn about it. Also, having kids, I'm like, they're going to be using this. I should learn what it's about, learn how to use it. And I know you're big on there, and it is very important to distribute your content, to share, especially if you have something cool to share. It's a great place. But yeah, I every day go back and forth. I'm torn. There's like a big movement now for like digital minimalism and not being on social media. And I'm like, I read this stuff and I'm like, they're right. It's hard for me to argue that like me going for a walk or reading a book or even watching a TV show like with my wife or my kids is probably better than me scrolling Instagram. And then I'm scrolling Instagram. So then I have these feelings of like I'm a hypocrite, but so yeah, I'm certainly not I used to maybe be one to say, oh, you should never be on this stuff, but now I'm kind of trying to learn about it and just like figure out. And so yeah, do you have any advice as to like how you can use this stuff more mindfully? Because there is a lot of value to it, but like if it's in my pocket, I'm going to check it. And yeah, what do you think?
I think mindful is the operative word there. It's like if you are using it for a specific goal, then that's probably positive. If you should be doing something productive, but instead of actually doing that, you're sitting there just scrolling through Instagram, like you said, probably not productive. And I'm not, I do plenty of the latter. So it's not like
Right.
I'm preaching from a place of, on a soapbox here. I have like made a point to just do less screen time in general, because for me, my phone mostly is not a utility. It's just used for that type of stuff. Like most of my work is done on my computer in my office. When I get home, I'm trying to hang out with my kids and my wife. So I've made a point this year to like do a lot less a lot less of that mindless scrolling when I'm at home. Like when I get home from work now, I just put my phone. I shut off my phone between. I get home. I usually cook dinner, have dinner with my family, then bath time and bedtime and everything. So from the period of me coming home until my boys are sleeping, which is 6 to 8 o'clock usually, phone is off. So
That's
there's not going
amazing.
to be any distraction at all. And then on the back end of the night, I'm trying to go to bed earlier, and I'm trying to shut my phone off like an hour before that because screen time before bed leads to not a longer time to get into deep sleep, and that's a whole nother conversation in terms of optimizing your sleep. Um, it's tough, man. That's what I would say. I heard recently Kevin Rose had a very simple trick where he just put maybe I want to say purple, but it doesn't really matter, just a rubber band around his phone, and literally just to remind him that if it's just sitting there and he goes to pick it up without intention, he's like, "Oh, rubber band means like don't be a dick," and puts it back down. Just a
Hmm.
reminder, like there's no reason for me to pick up this phone right now, but I'm gonna do it anyway. So that kind of
Hmm.
prevents it. I think that's the shit that you need to try to cut out. It's like the mindless. Oh, I've got nothing to do. I'm sitting here for a minute. I don't know, and like you shifting your attention around and just like picking it up because you want to fill the time. Or I would say if you're going to pick it up, you have to get rid of these apps. And we talked about this when talking about these like mini challenges like juggling. Replace your Facebook and Instagram on your phone with Duolingo or Lumosity for brain games or something like that, or Sudoku or something where you're actually learning or advancing your brain power in some way rather than just mindlessly looking at other people's lives.
But it's also, which I love, and that's amazing that you can put your phone down. I think that's the key. It's like if it's away from me or off, I can deal with it. But if it's in my pocket and on, I'm gonna like it's like that
It's not,
phantom
yeah.
limb thing. Like you're gonna grab for it.
It's become so normalized. It's like muscle memory. There are plenty of points where my phone is not in my pocket. I'm like, oh, it's vibrating. Like,
Right.
what the hell's going
But
on?
do you think? I mean, that's the thing. Like, I talk to some friends. They're like, "What's the big deal? That's just the future." Like, that, then I get in my own head. Is it really that bad? It's like it's. I'm like, what'd you hear? Steve Jobs, when he was alive, would say like, "What does your kid think of the iPad?" And he's like, "Oh, I won't let my kid have something like that." So it's like, there's part of me that's like, this stuff probably isn't good for them, and we're probably going to learn more in 5, 10 years. But I know you did a. I listened to you talk about iPads, and I was like, exactly. Like, it's also new that I just don't think like any of us, myself included, we don't know the implications of any of it.
Well, so it is the future though, in terms of everything is going to be screens. It's not just going to be handheld screens. Like our refrigerator is going to be a screen, and our mirror is going to be a screen. Like there's going to be screens everywhere because everything is going to be connected to the internet, right? So our kids, whether we like it or not, are going to be looking at things like this, right? I don't think that minimizing social media or mindless consumption is going to hurt them in the long run. Like they're going to be given iPads in school. If your kids, maybe your 6.5-year old is using that already, but like that's going to be the norm. So they're going to learn that pretty quick, whether we like it or not. So I'm not really concerned about that. I do believe that they will be using it, and we're not going to be able to
Hmm.
really avoid it. It's just about, again, what are they doing when they're on there?
Right. Yeah. There isn't. Yeah. I don't think like abstinence is gonna work, but at the same time, I'm like, just because people say things like that doesn't mean if I give my kid an iPad, he'll be in heaven for 6 hours just doing it. So I'm like, it's my job to take that. And I'm not when I'm tired or like there's another kid freaking out. I'm like, it's easier for me to give it to
Of
him. So I
course.
get it.
Yeah.
Like I'm not preaching here at all. I'm trying to figure it out too. So talking to you and people that do things like we did like a little challenge, like, can you put your phone down for an hour? And it was if you're not picking times that where it's easy, it's like kind of hard. So like just the fact that it's hard is probably a little, a sign that like it controls us a little more than the other way.
Totally. It is definitely not. It can definitely be a negative. It can also be a positive, I think. Like
Right.
obviously, take the Gary V angle of your phone. It's the remote control to your life, and it's everything you need is right there at your fingertips, which is true. It's incredible what access it gives us. But we could do a whole show on this.
Yeah,
One thing I
yeah.
wanted to
Well,
talk
it's
to you.
good.
Yeah.
It's good to talk about and hear that other people think about it, because or else you just like, am I the only one that thinks this is crazy or what?
Well, it seems like a lot of parents with their kids don't think it's crazy, or they're just giving up. They're just giving up entirely,
Right.
and these kids are
Right.
carrying around an iPad like a boombox.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to talk about before, or mention before we get out of here, our mutual friend showed me a clip of you doing stand-up comedy. Is this a new hobby of yours? What's going on there?
Wow. This was so I think stand-up comedy is like the greatest art form. It's like the most fun thing to watch, whether it's on Netflix or, we've started going, my wife and I, for date nights. We're starting to go like live to some shows in Atlanta. And my friend, when we were in Vegas, told me he'd gone up at an open mic. I was like, really? Wow. I didn't know anybody like that actually does that.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'd like to do that. And he's like, all right, side bet. Like by the end of the year, you get up there. And we were probably having a beer or something. And I was like, all right, I'm in. So, and when, like I said, we decided to move pretty quickly. And I was like, well, damn it. I made this bet. It's October. Like I said, Charlie, find a date. I got to get this, off my bucket list. So we both went up at an open mic, and it was terrifying and exciting. And yeah, I got up there and I did like 4 minutes, which it was humbling too. So I did it one time in Vegas, which is on YouTube, hidden secretly, and it went pretty
Is
well.
that the one
And
that I saw?
yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
And then I went once in Atlanta, and I went to an open mic. I put my name on a list, and I got passed over and passed over. Like the guys show up, and it was like not my. It was just I wasn't feeling it, but I was like, this is not going to go well. But I was almost like, you're here. Every comedian says like you're gonna bomb. You almost have to. So I
Right.
was like,
It's good for you.
fuck it. I'm just gonna go up there and bomb the night.
Right.
And I hear too, like Jesse Itzler, Sarah Blakely, who I'm big fans of. They like talk about like just almost intentionally embarrass yourself just to like get over that.
Did you bomb
So
that
I
night?
was like, I went up and I did it, and I was telling dad jokes and like stuff that's dirty dad jokes, but like there were 23-year-old kids in front of me that like don't get any of this humor,
Right.
and it was crickets, and I had a couple good laughs, but it was an official bomb, but it happened. So,
Nice.
and I think I just made another bet, 2019. I'm like, I'm gonna get up again. So it's happening. Yeah,
You know, it's one of those things that you hear people who know stuff say it's the one thing that like everyone should try it once because it's such a vulnerable moment, and trying to
yeah.
make people laugh is incredibly difficult. Who's your favorite stand up?
Yeah, there's so many good ones out there. I love, and podcasts are great too. I was just listening to Joe Rogan's awesome, and he has comics on there, and they talk a lot about. So I love, his discretions aside, I love like Louis C.K. I love Gary Goldman, Neil Brennan, this guy Donnell Rawlings I just heard from Chappelle's show. Chappelle is probably the best. He's maybe not at the top of his game right now, but he's just coming back. But I love it. And it's just like, it's fun to see even these open mics. Like I tell anybody, like, if you're looking for something to do on date night, like there's probably one within 20 minutes of your house. Go watch these guys try. The three of them will be really funny. And it's just, like you said, it's so vulnerable. And what I learned is like, we all think we're pretty funny, but like getting up there is very
Totally,
different.
totally different.
It's almost like performing. Like you need to write, like I practiced in front of my friends the first time and they're like, no, no. So I'm cutting jokes or like you're too wordy. So yeah, I do. It's like jumping off a cliff for sure. Terrifying, but bucket list thing to try.
And every room is different, right? One night a room might love this joke, that the next night it's crickets, and
Yeah.
it's all about the pacing or the atmosphere or the energy or something. There's so many variables.
Yeah. We saw Sebastian, I do love, but I totally agreed with you. And I went the other night, we saw Bert Kreischer. Those big venues, they almost are like, they really diminish the act. It's like a whole different experience. I'd rather see like an open mic in a small venue than like a star at Madison Square Garden. So that's cool too.
Yeah, totally the same. I feel the same way about music. Actually, I just prefer the small, intimate venues than the large things. Just get lost in there. It's just like it just seems to be like a one-on-one type. Even though you're in a room, it should be like a one-on-one thing, and you don't get that when there are 20,000 people around.
Yeah.
I'll give you one comic to check out, and it might be a little biased because he's friends with my brother and they went to college together. But Sam Morrill, he recently had like a Comedy Central special. like Amy Schumer presents type of thing. And like he's
Hmm.
been on Conan a bunch. He's like really starting to make a name for himself. Watch that Comedy Central special. He's outstanding.
How old? How do you spell his name?
Sam Morrill is like Morrill, something like
Oh,
that.
okay.
And he has like a bunch of clips on his Instagram page also. Shameless plug for one of my brother's friends, but
Oh, I love it.
he's awesome, and he's like definitely making, he's around 30 years old now, so he's grinding it out, but continuing the upward trajectory.
That's what actually social media is great for following comics because they can like bite size put up
Right,
some of their jokes and it's awesome. So I do love it for that. Yeah.
for
They're the
sure.
best. These guys that get up for like 40 minutes. Can you imagine standing up there and like remembering and like whiffing on a joke and coming back? It's like fascinating to me how they do it.
Incredible, really
Yeah.
incredible trait. That's all I got for you today. I mean, I actually got a lot more, but you have
I love it.
three kids coming down the pike at some point, and life calls. So, where can people check you out on all these different ventures?
Yes. Well, definitely if you're a dad, especially, or a mom, I think there's some good parent humor in there. Dad the Best I Can show on any place you can listen to podcasts. I am learning social media, so Instagram, Twitter, Dad the Best I Can. If you've got a kid between the ages of like 3 and 6 and they're going into kindergarten, pre-K, kickstartreading.com is great. You try it out, definitely use the code DAD and you can try it out really quick. It's really fun. And yeah, if you've got a really smart kid that needs gifted testing, go to giftedtesting.com. But enough plugs. Yeah, Chris, I appreciate it. Everything you put out there, like you talked about Gary Vee and these guys, and to me they're amazing, but like when you know somebody personally putting this stuff out, it's so much more empowering, like you said, everybody has a podcast, but you even said like, can you name 3 people in your circle that have one? So it's really empowered me to start stuff and try stuff. You and Zach also, like you're not afraid to fail and put yourself out there, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that, and I appreciate everything you're doing. And you're one of the people in this group that I have that reassure me that I'm doing some good stuff out there, which makes it all more worthwhile. Thanks for
Oh,
being here today, man. I hope we get a chance to do this again, and I hope I get invited back to the Dad the Best I Can show one more time as well.
please, please. One quick thing I
Yeah,
forgot that I wanted to talk to you about.
yeah,
We did go to Michigan together,
yeah.
but our connection starts earlier than that. I always remember, and our kids are now starting to play sports, the best childhood athlete that I ever knew. And when I was like 11 years old at summer camp, there was a kid named Brad Cada that dominated sports. And I think I brought his name up to you, and you're like, I used to play against and beat Brad Cada. So Chris Heller, secret, amazing child athlete, huh?
I'll tell you, I didn't play against him that much. We did live in neighboring towns, and I knew him, and he's married to a friend of mine actually. So like I've known him for forever. But he was always like I was a very good athlete because I've been this size. I've been this size since I was 10. Essentially, I was the early bloomer. Um, but he was like in the neighboring town, like, oh, there's this kid who's also huge and dominating in the sports, and I was like, oh, okay, that guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm familiar with his legend back in the day.
Yes, I love these. Yeah, I mean, you always remember the fastest kid, all these things. Like now that you have kids too, you get to start to see like who are the best kid athletes. So
Right.
hopefully one of our kids will make it in the mix.
I hope so. Hope they're better than me, man.
All right, Chris. Thanks.
All right, dude. Talk to you soon.
See. All right. See ya.